Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend. This is what we're going to be making today. I've thrown everything at this bottle, so stick around and see how it's done. Hopefully you'll like it as much as I do. First off, I've cleaned the bottle with isopropyl and these lint-free wipes, which are actually for nails. For any sticky fingers, sticky bits, dirt, anything like that. And then I've spray painted it with this primer just to give key for the paint to adhere to. I've used, it's just a tester pot of white paint. It's from B&Q, Valspar it's called. I think it's their own mix pots. And then I sponged it onto the bottle so that I don't get any streaks from paintbrushing. I don't know where I've got this sponge from, I really don't know. I just found it in a cupboard. However, it's only lasted a couple of uses. Once it's been cleaned, it's started to shred, so I've bought the pouncers, the sponge pouncers, so they'll be coming up in other videos. I've given it 2 coats of the white wall paint. I've left it overnight to dry between each coat. You could do it the same day if you've done one coat in the morning and then one coat later on in the day. It only needs a few hours, but I left it overnight because I was doing other stuff. And then I've masked off an area on the bottle, so below the masking tape I want it to be black. So I've masked that off and I'm going to paint it with this black acrylic, which isn't anything fancy, it's just a cheap one from B&M, and I've brushed this one on. However, going forward, I think rather than brushing it, I think I'd prefer to sponge it. I just think it gives it a nicer finish myself. Just making sure I go right up to the masking tape. Doesn't matter obviously if you go slightly over, because the masking tape will stop it from going through, or I was hoping so, but it does. It does work well. Just speeding it up for you there so that it's not so boring for you to watch me paint a bottle or part of a bottle. We all know how to do that, I'm sure. I gave it 2 coats of the black, and then just a pre-warning, when you are peeling the masking tape off, it will only get one use, because it doesn't properly dry on the top of the masking tape. I think is it non-porous, I believe is the wording for it. So it was very slightly damp. So be careful that you don't get it on your fingers, because you don't want to then go getting it on your bottle, which the rest of it's white, because that won't work very well. Luckily that didn't happen to me, or I might have been cursing to say the least. And then I've realised, and I don't know why I didn't realise when I first done it, but on the back it's gone up in a point and I wanted it straight. I must have been having a brain fog day or being half asleep, so I'm reapplying some new masking tape, and I thought, well, whilst I'm doing the back, I should make the sides and down to the front angle, and I'll just make the black bit a little bit bigger, and it makes life a lot easier then as well. Just trying to paint just to that edge. So again, I've given it another 2 coats of black up to the new mark, and it now has a straight back edge, and the point at the front is what I was aiming for. So I gave it another 2 coats, like I say, with the acrylic. Again, again I left, I'd done the first coat in the morning, and in the evening I'd done the second one. And then this is the napkin that I'm going to be using. So I used 2 squares from a whole of a napkin, one for the front, one for the back. I've removed the 2 back layers of napkin, because most of them have 1 or 2 back layers. And then I've watched lots and lots of videos from other people. I can't remember the names, and I really do apologise. And they've suggested that if you slightly dampen a brush and go around the edges rather than cutting, you can rip it and it will rip quite tidily. Now, it did work well. However, I did also find that if the brush is too wet, the water will sort of spread, so you'd have to be really careful. So I've made sure I've got my thumb on the opposite side of making sure it's ripping basically neatly. This front side I'm taking the butterflies off and I'm just having the flowers, but on the back one that I apply, I do actually leave the butterflies on, and then I'm just deciding which way round I want it to go, because I want it to sit sort of in that point at the front there. I don't know if you can see it very clearly. And then I'm going to stick it down with matte Mod Podge, which is also a sealer. I'm working from the middle outwards. If any of you have worked with tissue paper or napkins, you'll know that they're very, very fragile, so a very, very light touch when working with them is all is needed. Once I've done this, I do actually use cling film, which I believe you know as in America as cling wrap, I think it's called. Excuse me. Just coughing. Got a tickly throat. And then using the cling wrap, cling film over the top to kind of sort of spread it out a little bit, which then helps for the paper, the napkin, get my words out, the napkin not to rip, but it allows you to sort of try and get any creases out, which worked very well. Again, I've seen other people do this on videos. I've watched many videos before I started doing this. Again, you do need to have a light touch, although it probably looks like I'm going quite heavy-handed. I'm not. That's just a plain bit of white tissue paper I've got off there. So yeah, just a light touch, sort of spreading out any wrinkles. You do still see a few, but to be fair, when it's dry, I didn't really notice any. So although it probably looks worse when it's wet than what it does when it's dry, so you have to kind of trust the process along with this one. And then that's the front bit finished. Now these bits of the greenery you can see overhanging onto the black there, going forward I would cut those off because I didn't like them hanging over, because you can see them when I've painted it again to try and cover them up, because obviously they're glued down. It was too late, but by the time the end of the bottle turns up, you can't actually see them, but it would have cut out a bit of work for me to have cut them off in the first place, so that's a lesson learned. And then this is the back piece. Again, I've left the 2 napkins, the 2 butterflies on the napkin, and again working from the middle outwards using a very light touch with the Mod Podge, making sure all the edges are very well glued down so you don't get any peeling. Again, it's, you know, you've got to trust the process. It looks a bit creased here and there, and I was thinking to myself, oh God, are those creases going to come out? You don't want to play with it too much because you don't want to risk ripping it. If you work with it too much when it's damp from the glue, you know, there is that chance. Although you can use the cling film, there is a chance. And then I've used the Hobbycraft super light air dry clay with these moulds, and before I apply the clay in the mould, I've added, you can see at the top of the screen there, this white stuff in the pot. That's just bicarbonate soda. I'm sure you could use talcum powder or anything like that, really, just to stop the mould from sort of sticking in, the clay from sticking in the mould, so it comes out a little bit easier. Which, as you will see, it doesn't come out overly easy, but it's more a case of it's such a fine piece of clay that I'm working with to make this. It's like a rope effect, and it's so fine, to try and get it out of there was a bit of a task, as you'll see, but I managed it. This is the first time I've worked with this clay, first time I've worked with the moulds. Everything's first, so I got there in the end, but yeah, this is the first one that I've made, and as you could see, it was a bit, by the third one I'm kind of getting the hang of it. If at first you don't succeed and all that, you know, as you can see, it's very, very fine. You will see the pattern of them a little bit better, a bit closer up later on in the video. And then you could probably just get a quick brief look at it under my finger there. You can see showing through on the black was those leaves that I was telling you I wish I'd cut away. So I had to paint the black again after I'd applied these. I had to give it another coat of black paint at the bottom. So I could have missed out that step had I cut those off at the beginning. But again, you know, it's all about learning, and hopefully me doing it wrong means you don't have to. So when you're working with this clay, it's a very weird consistency, and of course you have to go really careful not to damage, you know, the effect from the mould, the pattern that, you know, you've made with the mould, but still try and firmly pushing it so that it adheres to the glass bottle. I've adhered it with tacky glue, which has worked brilliantly. I didn't want to use hot glue because I didn't think that would work, and I thought it might make it a bit bulky from the project, whereas I wanted it to the glass, if you like, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm just trying to work with it to get it as straight as I can, get it to a nice point, without destroying the pattern of it on the top. And then I'm just doing the other side here. And at the back, and also, actually before I say that, when you're working with it, so on here, rather than me, because I'm working on the other side, rather than me laying it flat so that I can work with it, it would squish the pattern, so you have to hold it away from a hard surface. So lying it flat on the table to work on the other side wouldn't be an option, which I did find out on something else that I'd done, and I can't remember what it was now, but it might have been this bottle and I had to start again. the technology of editing, you didn't have to go through all of that pain like I did. So yeah, just be careful and mindful, you know, if you've got a bit that you've just put on, don't lie it flat to a surface. Again, I'm just trying to keep that point as best I can to a point. Making sure it's all stuck well so it adheres nicely. And then on that butterfly on the back, I want to get as close to the edge of it as I can without going over it. And I go right up to it, and then I just trim with some little snippy scissors right to the edge of it. It cuts off nice and easy. And then I'm doing the same on the top of the bottle. Obviously on bottles you have lids, the lids screw on, so on the left on the bottle you have like the rim bit that the bottle would screw to. Obviously I didn't want people to see that because it's a bit unsightly, so I'm using the same kind of rope effect that I done down on the bottom part of the bottle onto the top here, and I've done it two layers high, so one on top of the other, upwards if you like. You'll see again as we go further on. And again I've just adhered it with tacky glue, but you just have to be so careful not to press too hard, otherwise you can lose some of the pattern. It's a very weird texture to work with, it's almost kind of marshmallowy, it's very odd, but I like it. It's a nice, I've not, get my words out, it's not that I've got another clay to go up against, because it's the first time I've ever used clay, air drying clay, or any clay to be fair. I do have some DAS as well, which I will be trying later once I've used up this Hobbycraft one, so I can compare the two and let you know once I get on to that DAS one how I get on with it. But this is as cheap as chips, it's £1. It goes quite far, and again I've used the air dry clay and those two that my fingers are pointing to on that mould. Again, that mould's from Temu, and I've gone over the clay once it's dry the next day with Pebeo gilding wax. Although this isn't a wax, it's almost like an oil based, but if you're going to paint or colour in any way or any way, shape or form, I would leave it overnight for the clay to kind of set, if you like. But for it to fully go hard, I think it was about 3 to 4, maybe 5 days, and then it was proper hard. But it was dry enough to be painted the next day. I wouldn't have painted it the same day, definitely only the next day. And then I'm just dry brushing, so I'm dipping my brush into the wax, getting as little on there as possible, but then I'm pretty much wiping most of it off onto the card on the desk there, and then just dry brushing it over, just to pick up, you know, the detailing, just to give it a nice finish. I think it's given it a really nice finish. It looks really nice. Looks better in real life, but doesn't everything when it's you know, seen with your true eyes, your own eyes. But I think you can see, you know, see on the camera it looks quite nice as well. This is actually the second coat that I've put on. I was recording and my battery had died on my camera and I didn't realise, so that you could see, and it wasn't quite enough on there, so I gave a second coat and recorded it so that A, you can see it, and B, I was a lot happier with the second coat as well, to be fair. And I pretty much done the second coat straight away, well, once I realised that my camera had died on me. thing is, you get into your crafting and I forget to look at the camera to make sure it's all going well. And there we go, you can see the rope effect finish, and then the top part there with the flourishes, or not sure what they're called, but I call them flourishes. And then again, just showing you what parts I used. And then on the base, I've used some felt, because on the bottom of bottles can be quite rough. And then I'm showing you which one I've used there for the rope effect. They're all rope effect, but obviously they've got different effects on them. And then there's the craft felt, sorry. And then this Rust-Oleum glitter paint. I keep saying glitter glue, it's not glitter glue, although it goes on like glue. Not seen it before, I found it in the range. I would advise to stir it really well, because the glitter settles right on the bottom, and you'll think you're stirring it really well, and then more and more glitter appears at the top. So yeah, I stirred it for probably about 5 to 7 minutes, and I could see more and more glitter coming up to the top. I trialled it on some paper the day before, and I said, oh, that's not very glittery, to my husband. I said, oh God, I've wasted my money, but no, I just hadn't stirred it enough. I think it gives it a nice effect. It brings it all together with the gold in the gilding wax, and it helps to cover a few sins on the bottom there, which I told you about earlier in the film, with the video, with the bits hanging underneath where I had to paint the black again. So yeah, it's just, and it's helping to seal it as well, to protect it. I do make to sell. I've posted this on my Facebook business page. I've had some very good feedback on it. I've actually had an order come from it for 2 Christmas bottles, so I'm chuffed with that. And there's the finished bottle in all its glory, which I'm very chuffed with. If you do have any questions, leave them underneath. I'll do my best I can to answer them. Hope you've enjoyed the video. If you can please give me a subscribe and a like, it will really help to grow my brand new channel.